For the best viewing experience, please rotate your phone to landscape mode. If you are watching on YouTube, simply tap the full screen icon in the bottom corner. Let's get started. All right, so let's have a look at crystallization. Now, this method, what does it separate? It separates a soluble solid from the liquid it is dissolved in when you want the solid as well-formed crystals. For example, copper 2 sulfate crystals. Now, picture this. A puddle of seawater left out in the hot sun. The water disappears into the air and sparkling salt crystals are left behind on the ground. That would have been a kind or form of crystallization. All right. So we have this method here. So what you need to do first is if any insoluble material is present, you filter it off and keep the filtrate. So what we have here is the filtrate. So we could be having any insoluble material probably present in here. Solution of one solid and insoluble impurity. A solution of one solid and insoluble impurity. So that's the one that we need to filter off the excess solid, which will remain behind. Now, what we do have is the soluble solid in its solution now. Okay, so then probably number two, you pour the solution into an evaporating basin and heat gently to boil off some of the water. Stop heating once the solution is saturated. You need to know what saturation means, or a saturated solution means. If you look at the keywords, saturated solution holding as much dissolved solid as it possibly can at that temperature. All right, so it becomes a saturated solution, meaning that if you add any more of that soluble solid, it will not dissolve. So what we want is that once we evaporate some of the water, we leave it saturated, meaning that at that temperature, it can no longer hold as much dissolved solid. And the moment the temperature begins to cool down, the crystals will appear. So you stop heating once the solution is saturated. Once it is saturated, test this by dipping in a cold glass rod, and the crystals on that cold glass rod, perhaps maybe when you dip in a cold glass rod here and you dip it out or you pull it out, what happens is now the crystals will appear on the cold glass rod because the solution can no longer keep the soluble solid dissolved at a colder temperature, and hence the crystals will appear. Crystals will then form on the rod to show saturation. Right. Then you leave the hot saturated solution to cool slowly. Solids are less soluble in cold liquid. Just like when you try to stir sugar in cold water, it's less soluble, but in hot water, it's more soluble. So the excess comes out of the solution and larger crystals grow. You then filter off the crystals from the remaining solution. Dry the crystals between sheets of filter paper or in a warm oven. And that's how you go about it when you are dealing with crystallization. If you want the steps and the notes, just say maybe you can just say crystallization or methods of purification notes, or on the feed of this video, you can just write notes and you have a clear guideline on the step by step for crystallization and other methods. So we move on next to the next method of purification.